Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 9, entitled, The Lord Incarnates as Mohini Murti, Text 27 and 28. This chapter is the culmination, or let us say the conclusion, of a long historical epic. The story like so many of the stories of Srimad Bhagavatam, reveals essential truths for anyone who wants to make spiritual progress from many levels and many perspectives. The story is full of so many instructions, critical to our progress on the path of bhakti. We find herein the very foundational essence of psychology, of human nature, and especially the very essence of spiritual life. Everyone is searching for happiness. Shakshi Gopal Prabhu, Dandavats to you. And my special Dandavats to Krishna Kshetra Prabhu, my very senior, worshipable, beloved God brother, who so patiently sitting and listening to my broken words. Anandamayo Vyashat. Everyone is looking for pleasure. But according to one's particular state of consciousness and according to one's free will, one looks for pleasure in different ways. The pleasure we are all seeking is to release the natural energy of the Atma or the soul. Prema Pumartha Mahan. The goal of life is to realize the love of God that is within us. Such love is unmotivated and uninterrupted. But due to free will, the jiva strives to find that pleasure in forgetfulness of our relationship with the all-attractive Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is both within and without. And the nature of the material mind, it is so complex that in forgetfulness of our relationship with Krishna, it can create endless justifications and unlimited methods for trying to exploit material nature. But the bottom line is simply selfishness. Janasya moho yamaham mameti. This is the crux of all misery, is we are bound by this misconception of I and mine. I am this body, I am this mind, and anything in relation to it is mine. But in the 5th chapter of Gita, Krishna gives us a peace formula. Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. Suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. We are all looking for peace, for real happiness. It is only possible when we accept intellectually and within our hearts, practically, that Krishna is the supreme proprietor of everything. Therefore, to please him is the perfection of life. Samsiddhira haritosana. Samsiddhira, the full, complete perfection of everything. Haritosana is just to make Krishna happy. And this is possible when we surada sarvabhutanam, when we actually have faith that Krishna is really our well-wishing friend. He is Hari. He comes to take away our inauspiciousness, to give us himself. Whatever Krishna does, for everyone, is out of love. Krishna, or let us say, Lord Narasimhadev loved Hiranyakashipu millions and billions and trillions of times than you could ever love your husband or wife. Or your own little baby children who are just looking at you with innocent, helpless eyes. Did you ever think of it that way? He's giving Hiranyakashipu what Hiranyakashipu needs out of divine love. Krishna is not partial to anyone in the sense that he's equal to everyone. But he naturally reciprocates according to how we approach him. This is what Prabhupada is explaining in purport. Ye yatamam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamyaham. As we approach the Supreme Lord, as we surrender, and everyone is surrendering one way or another, Krishna responds according to his love. His anger is love. Lord Narasimhadev looked very angry. But Prahlad Maharaj recognized that that anger was just a very extraordinary expression of his sweet love. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Singhachalam, beautiful mountain near the sea, near Vishakhapatnam in South India, he stood before the Murti, the deity of Lord Narasimha, and he was offering this beautiful prayer. That the lion looks very ferocious, but actually, to her cubs, she's most gentle and kind. Material nature sometimes seems very ferocious. But for a devotee who has faith and love in Krishna, Krishna from within the heart reveals himself. The famous story when the Japanese were bombing Calcutta in World War II, people were running to the air raid shelters. And Prabhupada was very calm. I think he was cooking puris, chanting Hare Krishna. And he told us he saw that Krishna is coming in the form of these bombs. Prabhupada was lovingly welcoming. Whether his body was blown into the thousands of pieces or whether he was protected. He had complete faith in the love of God. Maro birako bijo icha tohar nityadas. Bhakti Vinod Thakur prays like this: My Lord, you can protect me or you can kill me. That's for you to decide. I'm your servant unconditionally. In this story, these and many other lessons are described very graphically, in a very enchanting and exciting way. This is the glory of the Puranas, and especially the Mahapurana. These basic philosophical truths are spoken in such fantastic ways to captivate our attention. Because truth is only as beneficial as we digest it. Just like food. Even if food has very good nutrients, if you can't digest it, you get no benefits from those nutrients. In the Ayurvedic system of medicine, digestion is very, very fundamental principle. You can give the best medicines, but if your body cannot assimilate them, it's useless. So assimilation is very important. Krishna says in Gita, Bhakto sime sakacheti rahasyam heta dutamam. The Bhagavad Gita, the knowledge is there for everybody. But unless we have humility and devotion, tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Unless we have humility and devotion and an eagerness to serve, we cannot digest the knowledge. It could remain possibly in our intelligence, in our memory, but to touch the heart, that's where it actually takes effect in our life and awakens the soul. So Srila Vyasadeva, he wrote the Puranas and empowered his son, Shukadeva Goswami especially, to present these fundamental basic spiritual truths and the whole elaborate philosophy around them in such mystical, fantastic stories. And we may say, how is this true? It must be mythology. But that type of thinking is mythology. Everything we see around us is miraculous. We take miraculous things for granted because we see them all the time. Every tree, every plant, every human being, and there's a lot of them in Bombay. It's a miracle. If you really study, with the heart and with the intellect, a single cockroach or rat, you will be mystified by the miracle of how they work. You will have to see God behind it all. And there's a lot of them. But we see them. We're not mystified. In fact, we're repulsed. Because we're not seeing the beautiful creative energy of God. We're just seeing according to what we like and what we don't like, according to our conditioning. But it's really relative conditioning, because rats and cockroaches love each other. Just because you have a different body and a different mind, you think it a different way. But who's right? This is where sectarianism comes to. The rat will never agree that humans are more beautiful than another rat. And a rat and a human will never agree that a rat is more beautiful than my lover. Because we have relative perceptions. This is how nationalism and racism and sectarianism among religions, it's based on this relativity. Because this is what I identify with, this is what I'm conditioned to connect to, so it must be the truth. But the fact is, material creation is a great wonder. if we really see how God is working through nature with an open and receptive mind, then it's not even a surprise to read about the demons and the demigods churning the ocean of milk. But that's how it begins. Difficulties on the path of devotion always bring about glorious revelations and priceless gifts if we simply have the patience, the perseverance, and the faith to carry on. Now in this story, the devotees are not just coming to God and instantly everything's fulfilled. They're going through years of inconceivable labor and efforts before they actually get what they want. And even when they get what they want, it's not that easy. So, Bali Maharaj, yes, emperor of the Asuras, very powerful. They conquer the demigods. And the devotees are helpless. They're practically homeless. They have nothing to do. All their powers, all their duties, all their properties being snatched away by a superior force. Now this is what it's like in the heavenly planets sometimes. This is a very philosophical principle. It's instructive. We're so insignificant on this little tiny earth where lifespan is so small and things are so uncertain. Padam padam yadvi padam natesham. Krishna says in Gita, this entire material existence is endlessly mutable. Abrama bhuvana loka punaravatulorjuna. From the highest planet down to the lowest, there are all places where there's going to be suffering because everything is temporary, and the only thing that's certain is everything in material nature is uncertain. Krishna is the manufacturer. He has certified this truth. We're trying to find happiness through our material arrangements in this temporary world. Even the devotees can't do it. What is our position? The Srimad Bhagavatam is trying to break our faith in illusion and establish, because unless we break our faith in illusion, we cannot establish real faith in truth. This is very important. The Ishopanishad explains you have to understand ignorance and knowledge simultaneously. So many stories are there. They're inseparable for a conditioned soul. Our faith in illusion has to be crushed before there can be true faith in truth. And we have to cultivate both simultaneously. So here are the devotees. They're great devotees. And we should honor and respect them, every one of them. Because we make mistakes too. But they make mistakes. But when you're really big like them, their mistakes are much more sensational than ours. Your mistakes are not put in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because nobody really cares that much. But when the demigods make mistakes, the whole universe is affected. So here we find they made some mistakes. They made some aparads to great souls. However great of a Vaishnava you are, if you make aparads to great souls, Krishna's going to withdraw his mercy to teach you a lesson, which is another type of mercy. And they lost everything. Our tendency when things are going right, I'm the doer. But when things are going wrong, then we're not the doer, we're done. What to do? They didn't know what else to do. They were done. They reached their limits and they failed. At that point, they turned to Krishna. Janmaishwarya Shruta Shubireda Manamadapuman. Kunti Devi says, it's very difficult to call out God's name feelingly when you have high beauty, high knowledge, high fame, and high education. And wealth, great wealth. Because we become complacent and proud. We think we're the doer. What is that beautiful verse Prabhupada often quotes? That when Krishna wants to show his special favor, he may take everything away. And that's what he did here. So the demigods, they were not just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. They were really crying out for God's mercy. When Krishna came, and he wanted to teach them, and he wanted to teach the entire, all living beings, the best possible lessons. So he orchestrated this story in such a fantastic way. Here we find the perfection of politics, diplomacy, psychology, history. Everything is there. He tells the demigods, they're stronger than you. Make truce with them. And how to make a truce? On the basis of a higher principle. This is very important. We can focus on this for a long time, but we're not going to do it. But just think. You may be having problems with your godbrothers or your godsisters, or with the godbrothers or godsisters of some other guru or some other person, or you may be having difficulty with your brothers or sisters or your husband or your wife. Yes? But Krishna consciousness means to unite on a higher principle than our present quarrels and disagreements. Or even a higher principles on the relative things that we agree on. Yes, sometimes in marriage, for the higher principle of the children, or for the higher principle of the vows we have taken before God, we have to work things out no matter what. This is duty. This is civilization. For brahmachari, even though there may be disturbance, agitation, there may be conflict in the ashram, we may not like the color of another brahmachari's kopans. Anything could cause disturbance. I'm sorry. But the reality is, we can work it, we can adjust everything if we just focus on the higher principle. What is the higher principle? To please Krishna, to please Guru, to please Vaishnavas. Everything can be worked out if we are dutiful to the higher principle. Everything can be adjusted in a very auspicious way. And Krishna wants to teach us this because it's something we have to deal with if we want to be faithful to anything in this world. So Krishna wants to teach us in the most graphic way between the demons and the demigods. Now these are not just little guys. These are the most egoistic conquerors of the universe. The higher principle the devatas and the asuras disagree on almost everything. Yes? They disagree philosophically, socially, every way. But there's one thing that they agree on. They're looking for pleasure, right? They have very different ideas of pleasure. For the demigods, the standard is the pleasure is in sattva guna, the mode of goodness. For the asuras, it's either rajaguna, passion, or ignorance. Different kinds, but they're both looking for pleasure. So Vishnu is so expert. Nectar is the facility that empowers you to enjoy whatever kind of pleasure you want, millions of times greater than you do now. And everyone wants to be healthy and live a long life so that they can enjoy these pleasures without interference. The nectar will give you that. So it was such a unifying principle, a higher principle. Vishnu got the demigods and the demons to work together. Can you imagine that? To work together harmoniously on the same project. On the basis of a higher principle. So if they can do it, why can't we? The higher principle was amrita, nectar. Something that they could all somehow, they have millions and trillions of disagreements, but they could agree on this one point. So can't we? Krishna consciousness is based on the higher principle of amrita, nectar. As Vaishnavas, we all agree that the goal of life is to love Krishna, to please Krishna. We all want that awakening of divine love. Although, due to our conditionings, our upbringing, our experiences in life, we have so many differences. But somehow or other, whoever we are, in whatever relationships we have in Krishna consciousness, we adjust everything for the higher principle. And we're duty-bound to that higher principle. And we're willing to make harmony with each other on the basis of that higher principle. This is Krishna consciousness. So here they are, the same people who were murdering each other, assassinating each other, hating each other bitterly, fundamental philosophies and ideologies that totally opposed each other. Krishna got them to work together on the same project harmoniously on the basis of this higher principle. As long as we focus on higher principle, we can always adjust whatever disturbances and make progress together. But if we forget the higher principle, then all that's left is our egoistic differences. There's no possibility. Srila Prabhupada explained there was the League of Nations after World War I, and then there was the United Nations after World War II. But there's never been a time when there's not wars. Because they're forgetting the basic principle that can unify us. Our connection to the absolute truth, to Krishna, to God. So here, the demigods and the demons, now they're, instead of two teams, they're one team. They both have very different motivations, but they're working together for the nectar. And so many lessons that Krishna likes to teach us. They didn't just get the nectar. They go to the ocean of milk, and they take the mountain, and the mountain starts sinking and crushing them and breaking their bones and killing them, and they realize they're completely helpless, and they turn to Krishna. And Krishna comes and lifts and holds the mountain. Yes. And then as they're doing, Vashuki starts, they're arguing over who gets the heads and who gets the tails. And ultimately, the demons say, we will not do it we will not churn unless we get the heads. We don't want the tails. The tails is the rear end of the snake. We want the front of the snake. Nice. That's the way we are. We want a prestigious position. But like any prestigious position in this world, it's like the head of a snake. Looks nice, gives you some pleasure for some time, but then fire starts coming out of it. Yes. As Vashuki was getting hot, there was massive flames pouring out of his mouth, scorching the demons, and the demigods were in the back. It was nice and cool back there. So there's a great lesson here too. Take a humble, simple position in life, and you can coast through all difficulties. But when you try to, even if you're in a high position, if you akinchana gocharam, if you don't claim that this is mine, if you're not looking for the prestige or the power of that position, but you're just looking for the service of that position, even if there's flames, you don't get burnt. But if we want the credit, if we want the prestige, that when the flames come, and the flames do come, it burns. And it's an excruciating experience to be burnt. Krishna says in Gita, for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. What that really means is one who is attached to that honor. If you're honored, but you accept that the honor really belongs to my Guru and Krishna, then dishonor doesn't destroy you. In fact, it's just like another wave passing in the current of material existence. You go on with your service. Matra sparashastu konteya sitos nasuka dukata agama payano nityastham statikshashva bharata. We tolerate all these dualities because they come and they go. But as soon as we attach ourselves to either of these dualities, very difficult. So much impediment and suffering. So then Krishna had to send rain to cool off Vashuki. And they continued on. So many difficulties, so many troubles. They were churning for a long time and nothing happened. But they didn't give up. They kept going. And then finally, this was one of the most amazing parts of the story. They're risking their lives, they're struggling, they're working together. The two most inimical parts of God's family are working together, and actually they're all related. Both the demigods and the demons, they're all descendants of Kashyapa Muni, aren't they not? The leaders. They're all cousin brothers, or half brothers, or whatever. They're brothers. And they work so hard for so long, and then what comes out of the ocean? Poison. The exact opposite of what they want. No, they could have just said, forget it, we're going home. This is the end. All this work for nectar, we get poison? No way we're going to do this anymore. But they had faith in Vishnu's word that you're going to get the nectar. Just keep churning. It's the same situation with ourselves. We have to have that faith. We're churning our hearts for nectar, individually, collectively, together. But sometimes just the opposite things happen. We're not, it's very difficult. And you know what? The difficulties we have compared to the poison. This poison was about to exterminate all life in the entire universe. That's how powerful it was. And ultimately, they went to Krishna. And Krishna said, go to Shiva. And he even went with them. And Shiva drank it all. Just to show, the Bhagavatam explains, there is no quality of a Vaishnava that pleases Krishna more than being willing to endure difficulties for the welfare of others. So this wonderful pastime of the poison eternally glorifies Kalakanta, Nilakanta, Shiva as the Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, the greatest Vaishnava, giving the greatest example of how to make Krishna happy. Now this took some time. And then they go on, churning. Faith in that higher principle. And then all sorts of temptations start coming. Beautiful elephants and horses and apsaras. Surabhi cows, Lakshmi Devi, goddesses of fortune, everything's coming out. And Krishna is warning the demigods, if you get attracted to any of these things, you're not going to get the nectar. You're going to be distracted. Just focus on the nectar. It's the spiritual life, the path of bhakti. Sometimes nectar comes, sometimes the most wonderful opportunities to enjoy are manifested through our devotional service, and sometimes the most horrible impediments come in the path of our devotional service. We shouldn't get distracted by any of them. We should carry on performing our duty of churning for the nectar of pure love of God, whatever may come. The temptations are oftentimes a greater distraction. The nice things are greater distractions than the horrible things. If we're focused on the essence, saragrahi, focused on the essence of why we're doing it, then even horrible things we see in a different light. We welcome them. So after all this, finally, Dhanvantari appears holding the nectar. The crescendo of the whole story. And the asuras, the demons, grab the whole pot for themselves. And the demigods are too weak to fight against them. Now imagine what they're going through. They've done all this work. They've fully cooperated with Lord Vishnu's instructions. They've suffered a lot in the whole process. And finally, the nectar comes and the demons take it all. And the demons are already stronger than them, so they can't fight. And if they drink the nectar, they're going to be millions of times more strong. It appears totally hopeless. Everything's finished for the demigods. In fact, if the demons drink all the nectar, which they had the full facility to do so, there was absolutely nothing the demigods could do about it. They had everything. If they drank it, it would make things millions of times worse than the very beginning when they approached Vishnu and said, we need your help. And now everything's totally disturbed. They're absolutely defeated. They're hopeless and helpless. It's a dramatic story. Imagine. The demigod, the demons hold 100% of the nectar that's going to give them such power. And the demigods are just standing on the sidelines thinking everything's finished. And they turn to Vishnu. That's all they could do. It's a fantastic story. They were really crying out for shelter at that state, more than ever before. But here the demons, they have all the nectar. All they have to do is just share it and drink it. But their egos, each one wanted the prestige of getting the first drink of nectar. Yes? So each one was thinking, I'm more qualified than all the others. And they were fighting over the nectar. They became hateful and inimical toward each other because each of the demons was trying to oppose each other ones from getting it first. Yes? So they were fighting. And it wasn't just like a playful wrestling match. They were really, their hearts were burning with envy and enmity toward each other. And they won. They were the winning team. But they wouldn't let each other enjoy the results of their winning. Very good lesson here. Even in Krishna consciousness, we have the nectar. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita repeatedly echoes this message that a Vaishnava is one who takes pleasure in seeing another devotee get nectar. And if a person is opposed or envious of somebody else getting nectar, that person is not a Vaishnava. And we find here in Prabhupada's purport, he's very strong. He's talking about people who, several times in this purport, there are many karmis in the dress of devotees. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead can detect their purpose. So don't think that becoming a Vaishnava is just joining a movement. That's necessary for our spiritual progress. But we have to be willing to make spiritual progress to actually become a Vaishnava. It's not a matter of I wear tilak and they don't, so I'm better than them. One time a devotee read the newspaper and saw what the Pope, the previous Pope, who was very instrumental in getting rid of communism, and in getting rid of communism opened the doors to so much devotees' activities in these Iron Curtain countries. But it had his breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and there was so much meat. And the devotee was giving a class and just blasting. You see, this is a spiritual leader. He's eating meat and this, and he's eating this, and cows, and chickens, and lambs, and goats. And I said to him, of course, that's a defect in one's spiritual life if you're not following ahimsa, if you're causing harm to other living beings. But maybe, he's not showing kindness to animals, but he's showing kindness to humans. But you, my friend, you might be very nice to animals, but look how you treat other Vaishnavas. Are we kind to each other? Vegetarianism is not just a formality of not eating meat. It's It's a principle of ahimsa, which means to be paradukha-dukhi, that another person's suffering is my suffering and another person's happiness is my happiness. And that may mean that we have to extend this principle all the way to other humans, even to other devotees. It's the principle. It's the mentality, not just the ritual. In Krishna consciousness, a Vaishnava is a person who loves to see another devotee making advancement, getting the mercy of the Lord, tasting the nectar. There's different types of competition. There's transcendental competition, and there's just crude, egoistic competition. Prabhupada encouraged transcendental competition. I'm going to work harder to try to defeat what you do so that you'll be inspired to defeat what I do, and then I'll be more inspired to defeat what you do, and you are more inspired to defeat what I do, but we're not envious of each other. We're actually trying to help each other so that together we're doing the most for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna.